Most are afraid of unknown depths, skirting shores thinking world flat, and with the island girls in celebration of new religion. Nobody led me or said this way. I sailed alone on makeshift raft with wind as companion. Fate for deliverance, confidence enough to assess new dispositions. Seekers of lost paradise may seem fools to those who never sought the other worlds. Welcome to Momentary Zen with Zen Garcia. Visit www.fallenangels.tv. You're listening to Revolution Radio.
Welcome, friends, and thank you for joining us this evening. It's always a great pleasure to be able to share time and space with you as we examine all things esoteric, and I have the honor of being able to share the research that I've come across in all of the extensive reading that I've done over the years and examining all of the extra biblical material that I could find, and also compiling them into many different compilations of ancient manuscripts. We've been able to provide them for you so that you can check them out, study them for yourself, and make decision on whether they are relevant for your faith, knowledge, and introspection. And it's I know many of you have been blessed by this work, and I also, in reading all of this material, have found myself to be greatly blessed as well. And that in studying, knocking, seeking, certainly we do find and are led to answer that helps us to, in my opinion, to better understand what is the canonical materials and the accepted, authorized truth that has been, although hesitantly, provided the masses. And now that people can comfortably in their own language study the gospel, it seems, more and more people are wanting to find more and more detail and get greater answer on all that they've been reading and studying over the course of their lives. And what we have come to know now, since the advent of the internet and access to all of these web pages and resources that anybody anywhere in the world can put up in creating a web page and making information available, is that there are numerous ancient manuscripts, thousands of texts, which have been available to scholars, and especially those that are capable, the well-studied linguists, those that used to in the prior centuries would spend a lot of their time translating and deciphering and making available a lot of these manuscripts. And we have the legacy of that work more readily accessible to us in this day and age, whereas again, in centuries past, it was only those people that had a lot of money to purchase books, to have large and extensive libraries, and that did have the time even to read and study a lot. Certainly in this generation, most people spend their time watching TV rather than reading books, but there was a time when books were the evening entertainment, and people looked forward to and would spend all of their nights, even deep into the morning hours, reading and studying and looking into and trying to learn more about those things which they were curious. And it's unfortunate that, so much of, especially the youth, has forgotten, the importance of that. It's now more looking to TV shows, entertainment, Hollywood movies, or even internets and the internet and gaming, YouTube. Which I'm not saying you cannot find truth in that manner, because you certainly can. And in fact, there are a number of my friends, Robert Farrell and the Carpenter's Son, that do read and make a lot of these ancient manuscripts available in their entirety. And that has been part of the legacy of my work as well, is to share those things that I found in looking for a lot of the extra biblical materials, and especially those things that I've learned about truth, which are contrary to majority opinion, which just about everything I believe most is, things that are controversial to the mainstream Christian churches, or the just majority opinion, to say the least. But in reading the ancient manuscripts, you have certain themes that keep presenting themselves to you over and over. And so it has been my focus to write books on these different concepts as they keep presenting themselves over and over to me. And certainly one of those topics of interest, for which many of us have been led to the extra biblical manuscripts, especially the book of Enoch, is that of the giants and the fallen angels, and how their interdiction into the affairs of humanity led to um, people wanting to know more. Like just reading the Bible and people going chapter by chapter, verse by verse, you quickly come to Genesis chapter 6. I mean, in a day of sitting down and reading the Bible from the beginning, you come across Genesis chapter 6 on the sons of God mating with the daughters of man, creating a race of giants which were here before and after the flood, and which led the world into such depravity that the Most High would wipe out all things and restore all things, and begin everything anew by bringing on a worldwide and massive cataclysmic flood which topped all the mountains of the world and drowning the world and the giants and those that were wrapped up in abomination. It was for this reason that Noah and his family, he being pure in his generations, that he had a chance to begin again without having the fear of being confronted by some cannibal giant that wanted to, dispossess him of his life and his body, and to consume him limb from limb. Um, And we know these kind of stories written in the Bible are true even to the last few generations, that the explorers, the conquistadors, in talking about their travels through and their exploration of the Americas, both North, Central, and South America, that they came across huge tribes of native peoples, and that many of these peoples were governed by giants of massive stature. Um, and not all, I'm not saying not all giants are bad, but certainly there are reports and ancient witness as to the giants being cannibalistic in their behavior, and that many of those that were the enemies of humanity, they did go after, kidnapped, and would even torture and consume humans, and that they would even make them servants. And this, continued up until even the 1800s, with the Paiute Indians speaking about their war against these redheaded, blue-eyed, green-eyed cannibal giants that, would make war against the native peoples until they gathered together in force to go after and to decimate these giant tribes. And that's what they had to do. And it was a story of their having confronted and tracked down these giants, and, um, tracked them to a cave in Nevada called Lovelock Cave, and smoking them out and starting a massive fire by the entrance. There was no escape from them, and they were consumed, um, by the smoke, and not able to escape. They died within. And this would have just remained mythology, an ancient legend, if it weren't for a group of, gentlemen that went in there to dig up and to dig out and to make available the bat guano there. And they made not only fertilizer out of it, but also gunpowder. And it was in digging up those layers of, years and years worth of bat guano, that they were able to find, buried beneath them, the skeletons and the remnants, the remains of, you know, hundreds, if the reporting is correct, initially of hundreds of skeletons of giants, the men and women being, in excess of 7 feet tall, some very much larger than that. But, the conservative opinion, which is always one that hides the truth, was done so in a manner to keep this knowledge hidden. And that for whatever reason, there has been an extensive disinformation campaign by the elites and by even, the ancient historians, uh, the Smithsonian Institute, and others, to, make the story of evolution, which cannot include giants, because we're supposedly evolved of monkeys. And so this has been hidden from us, which, this truth does confirm the veracity of the Bible and the biblical accounts, which speak about the giants being the children of the fallen angels, and how throughout the ages they have been um, the arch nemesis of humanity. And so, anyways, the reason I say that is because of, again, this interest on this topic is what led many of us into the research of ancient manuscripts. But the reason I bring all of this up this evening is because I'm going to speak about a manuscript called the Kebra Nagast. And the reason I'm going to speak about this text, the Kebra Nagast, is because it has been voted in our Digital Readers Club, which we gather every Saturday to read from a wide array of different ancient manuscripts and the compilations that we've put together for sale at our website, sacredwordpublishing.com. That this is one that, has been voted on that we would spend the next few weeks and months examining the material of the Kebra Nagast. And so that's what we'll be doing. But in today's show, I'm going to introduce the text, and then I want to speak about a couple things in particular, a couple of quotes, which talk about and characterize the Hebrews, the Israelites, as a people. And the reason I'm going to examine that aspect of the Kebra Nagast is because many of you have asked me to do a show on what Yahushua looked like and to share eyewitness account giving description from ancient times, eyewitness description as to what he looked like, his physical traits, the aspects that made him who he was and how he appeared to the ancient peoples during that time when he was here walking upon the earth. And so I'm going to share that in the second hour of the show. I'm going to go into some of that because there's a lot of speculation and a lot of belief out there, which is not based on the actual testimonies and the actual evidence that one can find to confirm this. And it's not a matter of my opinion or what I think or what, I'm going to share about it. It's not based on something that I'm just going to make up in my head, but is actual evidence as to what the ancients knew themselves and what they had seen of the character of the Messiah. And so I'm going to share facts with you. I'm going to share ancient accounts which declare and share. And this is going to be numerous confirming witness as to the truth, this evidentiary truth. And whether you choose to believe me or not, or choose to still deny the facts, which a lot of people do. And there's a lot of people that, because they have a vested interest in holding on to and keeping what they have come to know and have formulated as opinion, and other people in other manners, other ways, sharing whatever it is that they've shared. People have been swayed to believe a certain way when it comes to understanding or even feeling, you know, well, I feel like, or whatever. It's, people's opinions, and people can certainly have their opinions and they can keep them. But when it comes to truth and the study of it, uh, truth doesn't always align with opinion. And so that's what we're going to examine in second hour. And I'm going to share a lot of very interesting stories which do present this information in a certain way. But with regard to the Kebra Nagast, let us examine this first. And for those that don't know, it is a ancient manuscript, Ethiopic text, and it tells the story of Solomon and his relationship with the Queen of Sheba. And it also informs us on the child that was born unto them. His name is Menelik. And this particular individual, once he grew older, he wanted to go and visit his father Solomon, which he had heard at the time was the wisest, most thoughtful, and most well researched individual to have ever lived up until that point. And this is, of course, um, according to the stories of the wisdom and the knowledge that he was given by the Most High. That even at a very young age, his father, David, um, allowed him to present and to reside over, um, you know, deliberations, difficult decisions, because back then the king was the judge and the jury, and he would spend a large part of his day listening to the claims of his citizens and trying to resolve difficulties which would arise between the citizens that lived in his kingdom. And so that was sometimes an uncherished aspect of kingship. But Solomon was found to be very wise even at a young age. And if you read the stories, there's a book on the ancient mythologies, the ancient manuscripts involving David and Solomon, and I believe the name of that book is "And As It Comes to Pass." And if you just search that on Amazon, "As It Comes to Pass," together with Solomon and David, you should be able to find the material. But I'm going to just read a little bit from the actual opening. And I believe this was written by Wallace Budge. I could be wrong, though. Let me see. There's so much material, though. I don't know that I should. Yeah, Sir E.A. Wallace Budge. And he was a linguist, that lived during the 1800s, was a knighted, here, Sir E.A. Wallace Budge. Um, okay, it says the Queen of Sheba and her only son Menelik, being Menyelek. The book of the glory of kings, which Kebra Nagast means the glory of kings. A work which is alike the traditional history of the establishment of the religion of the Hebrews in Ethiopia. And remember, I told you that the ancient Egyptians, that they were some of the first Christians. And the reason being is, as this story tells it, that Menelik, when he becomes older, that in the ancient times before his birth, all of the people of the world would come to Solomon with requests, either to be in his presence or to hear what people thought of his wisdom, his knowledge, that he would often speak in riddles, or just even in parable, in the way that Christ did in sharing truth with the people. And so um, the Queen of Sheba did go to meet Solomon, brought her whole entourage, and while there, she tested his wisdom. And she was very wise herself. But even though she was, before having met him, what people would consider to be and describe as being pagan, it wasn't but, just a few short days um, after visiting him and staying there for a while that Solomon seduces her, as he does with so many other princesses and the daughters of kings, and because so many are trying to give their daughters to him so that in marrying them, because he was Israel was a mighty nation at that time, that they would seek out strategic alliance. And a lot of times that was through marriage, that, people um, creating familial bonds, especially when it comes to rulership over different parts of America. I mean, not America, sorry, of Israel, ancient Israel at the time. Um, again, Solomon ruled over the whole world, that he was given knowledge of even how to speak with the animals, um, to even have control over the Djinn. And it was said that, he could command the assistance of even the insects of this world. And so that's incorporated into the stories as well. And even, like we have the story of Aladdin, and how Aladdin had a flying carpet, and also that the genie in the bottle. These are ancient accounts which preserved in the ancient manuscripts speak about how Solomon, being able to conjure up devils and demons, that he would contain them in bottles and that they were unable to get out when they had shrunk themselves to that size and made themselves visible, and that they were sent and captured and placed into these bottles, imprisoned in bottles. And a lot of times these bottles would be thrown into the deeper parts of the ocean or the sea or into ancient rivers, and that a lot of these um, demonic entities would be contained in these ancient vessels. But that often, well, not often, but sometimes these vessels would come to light, and being opened, the genies would offer to those that freed them wishes. But it is also said in the manuscript, The Glory of Kings, that Solomon, once he had grown up, once he had reached certain size, certain age, that he was given authority. He had a ring to where he can control the devils and the demons. And it was he that was promised that, even though King David wanted to build a house for the Most High God, for Yahuwah, that privilege was going to be taken from him. And even though, yes, God loved David, loved his work, the things that he did, because he sinned against Uriah and taking his one prize from him, that of his wife. That's what brought on punishment. And also in, causing the death of Uriah, leaving him abandoned on the front lines in war so that he would be killed, and then taking his wife to be a spouse unto him. He gave him the choice, publishing him or publishing his children or publishing the nation, punishing his people. And David took it upon himself. He didn't want other people to suffer for his transgressions, which, is noble, right? Very, very noble. But it was because of that that even the kingdom became divided among his sons, and that they went to war against one another, that there would be no harmony in his household. And that even though Solomon was, the child that was born of he and Bathsheba, that it would be meant, it was fated that Solomon would rule. And that Absalom, who, was mutinying against his father and had even the general of David's army on his side, that he was not destined to rule. And Solomon could have killed him in the manner that Absalom was seeking to murder him, but he did not. And Solomon was respected for whatever reason by the Most High. I guess, he did not bring to bear upon Solomon the sins of his father. And it's also, said um, and shown in scripture that children do not pay penalty for the things that their parents do, even though, yes, there are generational curses. And sometimes abomination and the repercussions of being involved in evil can spill over. Um, a lot of the times that is not the case. However, for the Illuminati families, we see that because of their dedication, their oaths to evil and abomination, and to serving their father, the devil, that it is for this reason the their families are punished. And I also think that, even the abduction phenomena, that their bloodlines are monitored, that the strategic marriage that they engage in, that it keeps their, the blue bloods, they have a psychical ability, they have a um, inclination to be able to conjure up devils and to be possessed or involved with them in a manner that is not so easily accessed by the majority of humanity. And I think that's also another reason why they, again, practice strategic marriage, even cousins and half sisters, and, what would be considered um, genetically not wise, that could lead to a schizoid nature being found amongst their children. But yet, that is the natural way that is considered normal for them. But anyways, let me continue on. The Gloria Kings, the Kebra Nagast, a work which is alike the traditional history of the establishment of the religion of the Hebrews in Ethiopia and the patent of sovereignty, which is now universally accepted in Abyssinia as the symbol of the divine authority to rule, which the kings of the Solomonic line claim to have received through their descent from the house of David. It includes 32 plates. I'll read a little bit of the preface before we get to break. This volume contains a complete English translation of the famous Ethiopian work, the Kebra Nagast, i.e., the Glory of Kings of Ethiopia. This work has been held in peculiar honor in Abyssinia for several centuries and throughout that country, has been and still is venerated by the people as containing the final proof of their descent from the Hebrew patriarchs and of the kingship of their kings of the Solomonic line with Christ, the Son of God. The importance of the book, both for the kings and the people of Abyssinia, is clearly shown by the letter that King John of Ethiopia wrote to the late Lord Granville in August 1872. The king says there is a book called the Kebra Nagast, which contains the law of the whole of Ethiopia and the names of the shums, i.e., chiefs and churches and provinces, are in this book. I pray you find out who has got this book and send it to me, for in my country my people will not obey my orders without it. The first summary of the contents of the Kebra Nagast was published by Bruce. Bruce is the same guy that brought back the Ethiopic, the Book of Enoch. And so, as I said, he was a linguist that, having traveled to Ethiopia and to Africa, was able to secure some of these ancient manuscripts, finding them in the Ethiopic canon. And it was in that canon that, even like the Book of Jubilees, um, and other ancient manuscripts, which are not found in, the King James Version of the Bible or the AD book, authorized. This is okay to study. Everything else is not. That kind of. So let me continue here. The first summary of the contents of the Kebra Nagast was published by Bruce as far back as 1813, but little interest was roused by his somewhat bald Preface. And in spite of the labors of Pretorius, Basil, and Hughes Larroll, the contents of the work are still practically unknown to the general reader in England. It is hoped that the translation given in the following pages will be of use to those who have not the time or opportunity for perusing the Ethiopic original. The Kebra Nagast is a great storehouse of legends and traditions, some historical and some of a purely folklore character, derived from the Old Testament and the latter rabbinic writings, and from Egyptian, both pagan and Christian, Arabian, and Ethiopian sources. Of the early history of the compilations and its maker and of its subsequent editors, we know nothing, but the principal groundwork of its earliest form was the traditions that were current in Syria, Palestine, Arabia, and Egypt during the first 4 centuries of the Christian era. Weighing carefully all that has been written by Dillman, Trump, Zodenberg, Wright, and Bezold, and taking into account the probabilities of the matter, it seems to me that we shall be far wrong if we assign the composition of the earliest form of the Kebra Nagast to the 6th century AD. Its compiler was probably a Coptic priest, for the books he used were writings that were accepted by the Coptic Church. For the books he used were writings that were accepted by the Coptic Church, And whether he lived in Egypt or in Aksum or in some other part of Ethiopia matters little. But the colophons, of the extant Ethiopic manuscript of the Kebra Nagast suggest that he wrote in Coptic. Just a little bit more, we're almost to break. In the succeeding centuries, probably as a result of the widespread conquest of Muhammad and the Caliphs, the Coptic text was in whole or part translated into Arabic. And during the process of translation, many additions were made to it, chiefly from Arabic sources. Last of all, this Arabic version was translated into Ethiopic. And proper names underwent curious transformations in the process. According to the colophons of the manuscript in the British Museum, Oxford, and Paris, the Arabic translation was made from the Coptic in the 409th year of Mercy, when Kebra Nagast, commonly known as Lalibela, was reigning over Ethiopia between AD 1314 between AD 1314 and 1344. And the same authorities say that the Ethiopic translation was made subsequently by one Isaac, of whom nothing is known, save that he was an enthusiastic Christian visionary and patriot. His knowledge of history and chronology was defective, and his comparative philology is unusually peculiar even for the period in which he lived. I think I should probably stop there. I'll pull up the other manuscript over the course of the break, the one on um, what the Kebra Nagast declares about the Israelites, and we can start there. And then we'll go into other ancient accounts and eyewitness testimony of what Yahushua looked like. And we'll pick that up in the second hour. We've got just a minute remaining. But also, if you have a question or a comment that you'd like to make, you can put it in the chat room, and that's also something that I will open up over the course of the break. And if there is something of interest for me to share with the greater listening audience, I will certainly bring that forth. But we'll be back at about 9:02. And we should hear the music in a minute anyways. We'll be right back, everyone.
Radio at freedomslips.com, and we'll be right back after this message.
Be evasive, but that doesn't mean that they're telling the truth as opposed to fiction.
And Genesis chapter 6, verse 4, and there were giants in the earth in those days, and also after that, when the sons of God came and also the daughters of men, indicating that there were giants before the Nephilim.
And sons of God, plural. They weren't talking about Jesus coming down.
No, that's right. Yeah.
I'm Steve Crawford, host of Factor Theory Live. Join me every Sunday night from 10 p.m. till midnight Eastern Standard Time on Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. Check it out.
Transcending time and space, let us take you to the place inside your mind where thoughts divide and mysteries unwind. Join us every Monday evening right here on Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern Time. And you will catch the Fenton Perspective with our great host, Lorian Fenton. Come listen in as she shares her amazing stories from the past to present, along with all of her guest secrets to the future. That's the Fenton Perspective every Monday evening right here from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern Time, only on Revolution Radio. Oh, and you don't need to expect us. We're already here.
Galactic Interstellar Council on Revolution Radio Studio A, Fridays at 2 p.m. Eastern. Join us as we traverse the starseed paradigm, as expressed in the time-space continuum that we know as the divine expression of love and light. Integrating this conscious unity into the galactic paradigm. So welcome all, both terrestrial beings and galactic beings as one. So be it. You're listening to Revolution Radio.
If you think for 1 second that the Capitol will ever treat us fairly, you are lying to yourselves. Because we know who they are and what they do. This is what they do, and we must fight back. You can torture us and bomb us. Fire is catching. And if we burn, you burn with us.
Good evening.
Are you awake yet? I hope. We've tried for years and years to use passive resistance and loud voices to make a change. The time is over. Your governments around the world have no other goal than to decimate your entire existence at the hands of the bankers and the elites. The war is coming, and it's your choice to decide if you want to be a warrior or a victim. Denial is not a choice.
anymore. Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, the #1 listener-supported radio station on the planet. Not giving up. Revolution Radio. All right. Thanks for listening while we took that short break here at Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. And now we're going to get back to your host.
All right, welcome back, everybody. For second hour, I am your host, Zen Garcia. This is Momentary Zen here on Revolution Radio, and it's always, like I said, a great pleasure to be here with all of you and to share the things that I've come to know. All right, let me find the 2 quotes that I wanted to share from the Kebra Nagast that will lead us into the other portion of this study. And like I said, this Saturday, beginning at 7 p.m., we gather together for the Digital Readers Club. And if you've not joined us, we have been, I don't even know how many weeks now, it's been several years of doing a weekly study, and we've gone through so many incredible compilations of ancient manuscripts. We did the Great Commission 1, 2, and 3, the Testaments of the Patriarchs and the Prophets. We did the forgotten Edenic books of Adam and Eve, like the primary Adamic literature, the Testament of Adam, the Apocalypse of Moses, so many ancient manuscripts. And if you're interested in the different books that I'm actually mentioning, like if you have an interest in the study of prophecy in the end times, I would definitely get the Great Commission 3. Oh, and we did the Infancy Gospels on Yahushua, the infancy, early childhood, and lost years, which was an incredible study. We did the Targum from Genesis through Exodus. I can't even remember all that we studied, but we spent 35 weeks on the Targum alone, which it is a very extensive book, but we're going to be starting the Kebra Nagast. We just finished the book of the Order of the Ancients, and specific to that, the writings of Abraham, which for those of you that do follow the work that Rob and I have been doing, and I want to, also let those of you that are in the chat room that have been asking about Rob and his well-being, from what I understand, he is getting better and is on the road of recovery, but family does ask that people just continue to pray for them, but that they, know that many people are curious and concerned with Rob's health, that you please continue praying for he and Sheila, their son, and all the others that came down with whatever it is. Some are saying it's a pneumonic COVID, or some kind of strain variant thereof. And so, yeah, so please do continue praying for him, and we will, as soon as he is strong again and of good health and well-being and has no concerns, we'll continue the Genesis Revisited series as well. And Rob, if you are listening or if you do catch this show, no, we do love and appreciate you, brother. And yes, we are praying for you and your family. And but there's no rush. Take your time. Get some good rest. Definitely cater to your health and well-being, and boost your immunity as much as possible. My good friend Laurel Austin suggested taking MMS. That this might be, that's something that helps you to stave off anything to do with the things that people are contending with out there in the world, the hokey pokey and all that, which I'm not going to go into. So we're going to now go into the passages from the Kebra Nagast about Solomon and Solomon's wives. And this will give you insight also into the physical characteristics of the Israelites. This is from chapter 64 on how the daughter of Pharaoh seduced Solomon. All right. This is what it says. And then the daughter of Pharaoh appeared before Solomon and said unto him, It is good to worship the gods like my father and all the kings of Egypt, who were before my father. And Solomon answered and said unto her, They call gods the things which have been made by the hands of the worker in metal and the carpenter and the potter and the painter and the hewer in stone and the sculptor. These are not gods, but the work of the hand of man, in gold and silver and brass and lead and iron and earthenware and in stone, and ye call our gods the things that are not your gods? But we worship none else than the holy God of Israel. And Our Lady, the holy and heavenly Zion, the tabernacle of the law of God. The lady, that is the Ark of the Covenant, as it is referenced here in the Kebra Nagast. They also call it the Holy and Heavenly Zion, the tabernacle of the law of God, which we know that the two plates, the Ten Commandments that were written by Moshe after the two of which were inscribed upon by Yahuwah, he had tossed down when he came down to find the Israelites worshiping the golden calf. and being horrified and, just pleased with the people, he broke down that calf and made them eat it. All right, the tabernacle of the law of God, whom he hath given us, to worship us and our seed after us. And she answered and said unto him, Thy son hath carried away thy lady Zion, thy son whom thou hast begotten, who springeth from an alien people into which God hath not commanded you to marry. That is to say, from an Ethiopian woman, who is not of thy color, and is not akin to thy country, and who is moreover black. And Solomon answered and said unto her, Though thou speakest thus, art thou not thyself of that race, concerning which God hath not commanded us that we should take wives from it? And thy kin is her kin, for ye are all the children of Ham. And God, having destroyed of the seed of Ham 7 kings, hath made us to inherit this city, that we and our seed after us may dwell therein forever. And as concerning Zion, the will of God hath been performed, and he hath given her unto them so that they may worship her. And as for me, I will neither sacrifice to nor worship thine idols, and I will not perform thy wish. All right, so, in this short passage, we see that he is given, much like Abraham was given Hagar, who was, she was an Ethiopic princess. I mean, an Egyptian princess. She was the daughter of Pharaoh, but she was made the handmaiden of Sarah. In similarity, we have here the wife, the daughter of Pharaoh, seducing Solomon, that she asked him to worship and to sacrifice unto idols, which I think it's a few years after this particular incident, or somewhere thereabouts, that he does fall into sin and begins to worship idols, and because of that he loses the favor of the Most High God, and also loses his authority and his power over demons, so that he actually becomes possessed, and he can't control them. And so that's what happens to a lot of people that get involved with the occult, the Ouija boards and stuff. They don't really understand the doors that they are opening. And then in the second portion after that, he speaks about how, well, she says unto him that that him hooking up with Sheba and having this son Menelik, who took and carried away the Holy Tabernacle, the Ark of the Covenant, which it was taken by Menelik. And that she was not the same color as he was. And being black, that she was not similar in color nor race, and that she was of the children of Ham, whereas he was of the Israelites, the 12 tribes, specifically the tribe of Judah, that he was given kingship, and that the children of David, the stem of Jesse, and so it's interesting to consider that if what this holy book, which, this is one of those manuscripts which the Ethiopic people themselves highly revere, and that, the Christians down there in Ethiopia are majority, black Christians, but it says in this manuscript that the Israelites, especially King Solomon, that even King David was said to have red hair. For whatever, you can look that up yourself. But he was said to have red hair. And that the Israelites, being Middle Eastern people, were said to have olive colored skin, but that they were not black, or black as a race or as a color. And that King Solomon certainly is said to have not been black, as it is in this manuscript. And I know that a lot of individuals that are part of the biblical Hebrew movement, that you believe the Israelites to have been black in color. But, again, just considering this manuscript, and then the others I'm going to go into, which actually give a physical description of Yahushua, that if you listen to all these ancient witnesses and just accept them for what they are, then it's my opinion that you're wrong in your assessment. And I don't care one way or the other. I'm just telling you from what the manuscript says. I'm not, I don't care one way or the other if Christ was black or red, yellow, whatever, white, does not matter to me, because Christians as a whole, we are a community, a motley crew, and we are of every color, race, creed, gender. And so, the family of Christ is not, and salvation is not based upon what color you are, what race, what nationality. Has nothing to do with that. The only race that you have to be is human. Because the giants are excluded from salvation because they are cannibals, they practice abomination, they sacrifice their children to Moloch, to the devil. They truly are of the devil, Cain being of the wicked one. And so it's important to understand these concepts. And so I'll read that portion one more time, just so you get it, and then we'll go into this other, because I know this show's quickly going by. But I don't want you to miss this. And she answered and said unto him, Thy son hath carried away thy lady Zion, thy son whom thou hast begotten, who springeth from an alien people, into which God hath not commanded you to marry. That is to say, from an Ethiopian woman who is not of thy color, and is not akin to thy country, and who is moreover black. So they're talking about the Queen of Sheba. And Solomon had a child with her whose name was Menelik. And once he grew up, he came to visit Solomon, and the Holy Spirit allowed him to take the Ark of the Covenant back to Ethiopia. And that not only did he take the Ark of the Covenant, but all of the firstborn children of Solomon's court, all of the most important people in his kingdom, their firstborn sons and daughters left with Menelik and went back to Ethiopia and transferred to that country the traditions of the Israelites. And that's when they became a Christian people believing in Christ as Savior Messiah, which is something that the Jews did not accept. And Solomon answered and said unto her, though thou speakest thus, art thou not thyself of that race concerning which God hath not commanded us that we should take wives from it? And thy kin is her kin. For ye are all the children of Ham. And God, having destroyed of the seed of Ham 7 kings, hath made us to inherit this city, that we and our seed after us may dwell therein forever. All right, I'll share one other thing. I'm looking at one other passage here. And I'm trying to see how this is relevant to the. It's in chapter 90. Okay, here it is. I'm going to just go to the very last part since I know we're running out of time. It's talking about the Ethiopians and how they're different from the Israelites. All right, it says this. And as for a country, we say that he hath chosen no country except ours, but now we see that the country of Ethiopia is better than the country of Judah. And from the time that we arrived in your country, everything that we have seen hath appeared good to us. Your waters are good, and they are given without price or payment. And we have air without fans, and wild honey is as plentiful as the dust of the market place, and cattle as the sand of the sea. And as for what we have seen, there is nothing detestable, and there is nothing malign in what we hear, and what we walk upon, and what we touch, and in what we taste with our mouths. But there is one matter that we would mention. Ye are black of face. I only state this face because I can see that ye are. But if God illumineth, maketh white your hearts, as far as your color is concerned, nothing can injure you. And so, again, it's just saying here that the Ethiopians are a black race and the Israelites were not. They were different. And so I'm going to go, because I know we're quickly running out of time. I'm going to go to the story of the eyewitness that shares what Christ looks like. The oldest views and literary data on the external appearance of Jesus. The description of Publius Lentulus. The following was taken from a manuscript in the possession of Lord Kelly, and in his library was copied from an original letter of Publius Lentulus at Rome, it being the usual custom of Roman governors to advertise the Senate and the people of such material things as happened in their provinces in the days of Tiberius Caesar. Publius Lentulus, the resident of Judea, wrote the following epistle to the Senate concerning the Nazarene called Jesus. There appeared in these days a man of the Jewish nation of great virtue named Yeshua, Jesus, who is yet living among us and of the Gentiles is accepted for a prophet of truth, but his own disciples call him the Son of God. He raiseth the dead and cureth all manner of diseases. A man of stature somewhat tall and comely, with very reverent countenance, such as the beholders may both love and fear. His hair of the color of the chestnut, full, ripe, plain to his ears, whence downward it is more orient and curling, and wavering about his shoulders. In the midst of his head is a seam or partition in his hair, after the manner of the beautified, with a lovely red, his nose and mouth so formed as nothing can be reprehended. His beard, thickish in color like his hair, not very long but forked. His look innocent and mature. His eyes gray, clear and quick. In reproving hypocrisy, he is terrible. In admonishing, courteous and fair spoken, pleasant in conversation, mixed with gravity. It cannot be remembered that any have seen him laugh, but many have seen him weep. In proportion of body, most excellent, his hands and arms delicate to behold. In speaking, very temperate, modest, wise, a man for his singular beauty, surpassing the children of men. So here, remember this spot and what it says of Yeshua Christ. That he had golden chestnut hair, his eyes were gray, and that his hair was about shoulder length. This is the letter from Pontius Pilate to Tiberius Caesar, which we know Pontius Pilate is the one who crucified Christ to death. But that he was this is a reprinting of a letter from Pontius Pilate to Tiberius Caesar describing the physical appearance of Jesus. Copies are in the Congressional Library in Washington, D.C. To Tiberius Caesar. A young man appeared in Galilee preaching with humble unction a new law in the name of the God that has sent him, At first, I was apprehensive that his design was to stir up the people against the Romans. But my fears were soon dispelled. Jesus of Nazareth spake rather as a friend of the Romans than of the Jews. One day I observed in the midst of a group of people a young man who was leaning against a tree, calmly addressing the multitude. I was told it was Jesus. This I could easily have suspected, so great was the difference between him and those who were listening to him. His golden colored hair and beard gave to his appearance a celestial aspect. He appeared to be about 30 years of age. Never have I seen a sweeter or more serene countenance. What a contrast between him and his bearers with their black beards and tawny complexions. Unwilling to interrupt him by my presence, I continued my walk, but signified to my secretary to interrupt him by any presence. I continued my walk, but signified to my secretary to join the group and listen. Later, my secretary reported that never had he seen in the works of all the philosophers anything that compared to the teaching of Jesus. He told me that Jesus was neither seditious nor rebellious, so we extended to him our protection. He was at liberty to act, to speak, to assemble, and to address the people. This unlimited freedom provoked the Jews, not the poor, but the rich and the powerful. Later, I wrote to Jesus requesting an interview with him at the Praetorium. He came when the Nazarene made his appearance. I was having my morning walk, and as I faced him, my feet seemed fastened with an iron hand to the marble pavement, and I trembled in every limb as a guilty culprit, though he was calm. For some time I stood admiring this extraordinary man. There was nothing in him that was repelling, nor in his character, yet I felt awed in his presence. I told him that there was a magnetic simplicity about him and his personality that he elevated him far above the philosophers and teachers of his day. Now, noble sovereign, these are the facts concerning Jesus of Nazareth, and I've taken the time to write you in detail concerning these matters. I say that such a man who could convert water into wine, change death into life, disease into health, calm the stormy seas, is not guilty of any criminal offense. And as others have said, we must agree. Truly, he is the Son of God, your most obedient servant, Pontius Pilate. And so again, here we see that he looks even different than the Israelites. His golden colored hair and beard gave to his appearance a celestial aspect. He appeared to be about 30 years of age. All right, and so there's two that say he has golden chestnut hair and either gray or blue eyes. Now, here's another one. This is from the Archicad volume, which was written, sometime right after the time of Christ, and that bring forth another confirming witness as to his physical description. Masalian is a man of very deep thought and most profound judgment. All his life he has made the scriptures his study. He too is a good judge of human nature. And he is satisfied that Jesus is the Christ. He said that Jesus seemed to understand the prophecy by intuition. I asked him where Jesus was taught to read the prophecy. He said that his mother told him that Jesus could read from the beginning, that no one had ever taught him to read. He said that he, in making quotations from the prophets, was sometimes mistaken or his memory failed him. But Jesus could correct him every time without the scroll, and that sometimes he thought Jesus was certainly mistaken. But never in a single instance was he wrong. I asked him to describe his person to me so that I might know him if I should meet him. He said, if you ever meet him, you will know him. While he is nothing but a man, there is something about him that distinguishes him from every other man. He is the picture of his mother, only he has not her smooth round face. His hair is a little more golden than hers, though it is as much from sunburn as anything else. He is tall, and his shoulders are a little dropped. His visage is thin and of a swarthy complexion, though this is from exposure. His eyes are large and a soft blue, and rather dull and heavy. The lashes are long and his eyebrows very large. His nose is that of a Jew. In fact, he reminds me of an old-fashioned Jew. In every sense of the word. He is not a great talker unless there is something brought up about heaven and divine things. When his tongue moves glibly and his eyes light up with a peculiar brilliancy. And though there is this peculiarity about Jesus, he never argues a question, he never disputes. He will commence and state facts, and they are on such a solid basis that nobody will have the boldness to dispute with him. Though he has such mastership of judgment, he takes no pride in confuting his opponents, but always seems to be sorry for them. I have seen him attacked by scribes and doctors of the law. and they seem like little children learning their lessons under a master. The young people tried to get him to take a class of them and teach them, but he utterly refuseth. This Jew is convinced that he is the Messiah of the world. All right, and so you see in this passage as well. If you ever meet him, you will know him. While he's nothing but a man, there's something about him that distinguishes him from every other man. He is the picture of his mother, only he has not her smooth round face. His hair is a little more golden than hers, though it is as much from sunburn as anything else. He is tall and his shoulders a little drop. So again, he has golden colored hair. So take it for whatever you know, um, whatever you want to believe about his race. He has golden colored hair, said to have gray or blue eyes, and tawny complected skin. I'm going to share one more with you. And this is also from the Archicad volume. It's the testimony of Gamaliel in the Archicad volume as he talks to Mary and Joseph, who are, the parents. I don't think I included this one. Oh, actually, that is the testimony of the one I just read was the one from Gamaliel. There is one other one from the Archicad volume, but I don't have that one written down here. Oh, actually, no, I do. Let me see. It says, another description of Jesus found in the Archicad volume, which contains official court documents from the days of Jesus. This information substantiates that he came from racial lines which had blue eyes and golden hair. Oh, no, that is the one that I just read. I do believe there is one more. We're going to continue on. This is from Josephus, the Antiquities of the Jews. I only have a couple more opportunities. From Book 18, Chapter 2, Section 3. Now there was about this time Jesus, a wise man, if it be lawful to call him a man, for he was a doer of wonderful works, a teacher of such men as received the truth with pleasure. He drew over him both many of the Jews and many of the Gentiles. He was the Christ. And when Pilate, at the suggestion of the principal men amongst us, had condemned him to the cross, those that loved him at the first did not forsake him, for he appeared to them alive again the third day, as the divine prophets had foretold. These and 10,000 other wonderful things concerning him, and the tribe of Christians so named from him, are not extinct at this day. Cornelius Tacitus. I'm looking. Sorry. Cornelius Tacitus was a Roman historian who lived circa 56 to 120 AD. He is believed to have been born in France or Gaul into a provincial aristocratic family. He became a senator, consul, and eventually governor of Asia. Tacitus wrote at least 4 historic treatises around 115 AD, and he published annals in which he explicitly states that Nero prosecuted the Christians in order to draw attention away from himself for Rome's devastating fire of 64 AD. In that context, he mentions Christus, who was put to death by Pontius Pilate. All right, I am looking for other specific physical descriptions. Okay, I'll read this portion. There's a lot here, but other data. The problem of the life passion of Saint C and the external appearance of Jesus possessed but minor interest for the church fathers, although the Catholic Acts of the Holy Apostles ascribed to him an olive complexion, a beautiful beard, and flashing eyes. Further details are first found in a letter to Emperor Theophilus attributed to John of Damascus, which speaks of the brows which grew together, the beautiful eyes, the prominent nose, the curling hair, the look of health, the black beard, the wheat-colored complexion, and long fingers. A picture which almost coincides with the handbook on painting from Mount Athos, not earlier than the 16th century. In like manner, Nicephorus Callistos, who introduced his description of the picture of Christ with the words, quote, as we have received it from the ancients, was impressed with the healthful appearance, with the stature, the brown hair, which was not very thick, but somewhat curling, the black brows, which were not fully arched, the sea blue eyes shading into brown, the beautiful glance, the prominent nose, but brown beard. Of moderate length, and the long hair which had not been cut since childhood. The neck slightly bent, and the olive and somewhat ruddy complexion of the oval face. A slight divergence from both these accounts is shown by the so-called letter of Lentulus. I just read that. Yeah, we read that letter at the beginning, but again, even the church fathers describe him as having this tawny complexion, golden hair, and sea blue eyes. I would also make mention that there is a book called He Walked the Americas, where the Native American people are said to have interacted with Christ also in the span of their histories. They called him the Pale Healer. And they also said that he had white skin, golden hair, and either gray or blue eyes. And that a lot of that depended upon how he was orientated with the sun. So anyways, that is, again, that's multiple confirming witnesses. That's 4 there. The Bible says, out of the mouths of 2 or 3 witnesses shall the truth be established. I gave you 4. The letter from whatever that guy's name, Lentellus. We have Tiberius Caesar. We have Gamaliel. Publius Lentellus, I think is his name. But anyways, I can't remember as of right now. But also I would say that in the writings of Abraham, Sarah is also described. And perhaps let me share that final account too, that she was said to be fair skin with rosy cheeks. Let me see if I can find this really quick. Okay, here we go. Okay, here we go. Chapter 50 in the writings of Abraham, it says, now among the believers were Lot the son of Haran and Haran's daughters Milcah and Sarah. Milcah was fair, but Sarah was beautiful above all women. Her face was as that of an angel filled with light, her cheeks as 2 roses in full bloom, her hair as spun gold, which men treasure above all, her eyes as pools of blue reflecting the glory of God's sky, her nose delicate and lovely, and her countenance truly was fair as the sun. Her breasts like 2 mountains rising above the plain of Shinar were fair to behold, and her complexion truly like the clouds in purity. Her arms were comely, her hands perfect and delightful to behold, always in the service of those in need, and quick to hasten to the service of the Lord, her God. Her palms were lovely, unmarred by her constant labor. Her fingers long and slender. Her feet were comely and always set in the path of truth. Her thighs were well rounded and soft, yet never failing to sustain her in her labor of love in behalf of the servants of God. Truly no maiden was fairer than Sarah, the daughter of Haran, for her beauty was greater than all other women, and she excelled them all. But with her beauty was great wisdom and perfect faith in the Lord and constant service in behalf of the saints. For her hands never ceased from blessing the people of God. Wherefore my brother Nahor took Milcah, the daughter of Haran, to wife. But I, Abram, took Sarah at the direction of the Lord, and I found great joy in her. And so, there you have it. Sarah also was described as fair skin, rosy cheeks, golden hair with blue eyes, in similarity to that of Christ. And so, again, take it for what you will. These are ancient manuscripts, all independently written, all sourced different from one another, but all sharing the same discernment. And they are all confirming witness to the truth of what is preserved, even the account of Pontius Pilate to Tiberius Caesar. All right, good night all, and join us Saturday for the Kebra Nagast. Be blessed. Shalom.